Friday, December 8th. Fed meets next Wednesday. Aside from all of the other hoo-ha going on, one piece of hoo-ha is the tax bill. And I think the consensus deepening that the tax bill isn't going to have meaningful economic effect. That is, it's not going to stimulate the economy more, which would force the Fed to be more aggressive. The Fed always sits in an unclear place. The Fed's lack of clarity now is historic in that all of its traditional measures of what the economy is up to and what they should do about it are sending signals that make no sense. Here we are in an economic expansion. The GDP in the second half of this year is growing somewhere between 3 and 3.5%, which is almost twice as fast as the Fed said it could grow. That is, could grow without inflation. The standard model at every central bank, every economist, is the speed limit is the sum of increase in productivity plus increase in the workforce. Productivity is growing, maybe 1% per year. The workforce is growing at about 1% a year, so the speed limit is 2. Yet, here we are in much more rapid economic growth. We not only have no increase in inflation. Inflation is still sitting below the Fed's 2% target despite the most extraordinary stimulus measures in the history of central banks. And the same is true overseas as well. We have no inflation. We have no wage growth. We have some wage growth, but we have wage growth that's just beyond the rate of inflation. So what is the Fed supposed to do? Should the Fed pay attention to the long-standing, more than 100-year-old rule book? Or should it just sit watching things happen that can't be happening? Ben Bernanke gave us many things, but one of the things that he gave us was an approach that was called balance of risks. Of the risks at hand, what's the worst risk? So the one risk is the economy overheats. We go into a wage spiral, chasing inflation. That's a bad thing. We have a lot of history with wage price spirals. Over and over and over again, and I've lived through several of them, there isn't any way to stop a wage price spiral except by throwing many millions of people out of work and jacking the unemployment rate to double or triple where it is. The second risk at hand is if the Fed overdoes rate increases, it might create a recession. It might put us back in the near deflation soup that we were just in and got out of. Fed can look in the mirror and say, we just got out of that one. And we have the same tools that we used to get out of it last time. So if we err on the side of being too tight, that's not so painful to get out of. If we err on the side of letting a wage price spiral get going, and for all we know the fuel for one is already on fire and we just can't see it, then it's vastly more painful to solve that problem. So the Fed's going to tighten next week. And the word tighten is a misnomer. The Fed tightening refers to credit. The Fed has just nicked up the cost of money, 1% in the last 2 years, from 0.25 to 1.25. It'll go to 1.5 next Wednesday. It plans to go to 2.25 by the end of next year and to 3 by the year after that. Those increases in the overnight cost of money have not yet, nor do they project, to have any impact at all on the availability of credit. So the Fed's not tight. It's just making money more expensive, really more taking out an insurance policy than having any immediate impact on the economy. That's what's coming. You're going to hear all kinds of crazy things next week, but that's the straight skinny, and it's written down next to this video. Have a great weekend.